Should the Terps fire Mike Locksley?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. I'm also doing work at InsideBlackandGold.net. So make sure you guys head over to InsideBlackandGold.net for all your latest Terps news. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm going to say this about Mike Locksley, and should the Terps fire him? They should absolutely not fire Mike Locksley. I know I've been reading a lot of what fans have been saying and what a lot of outside media has been saying about Maryland football and all these different things about should he be fired, should Mike Locksley be gone as Maryland's head coach after a quite horrible year so far this year Mike Locksley is putting together at Maryland. It's just about as bad as you could have imagined him to have this year at Maryland. But I think when we look at what Mike Locksley has done so far for this Maryland program, I can't go out there and say that the Terps should fire Mike Locksley because I think he's done a really, really good job of rebuilding this team. I think that when you look at when he joined as coach in 2019, when things were still iffy in the program and we weren't the best team, and what he did to rebuild that team all the way to the 2023 season, I look at it as a really high-level coaching job for Mike Locksley. And I don't think you fire a coach because they had one bad year. You fire a coach because they start having a second bad year, a third bad year. Now, if we go into next year and it looks like crap and it still looks really bad and we can't win Big Ten games and clearly we look like somebody that shouldn't be on the field with a lot of these teams, a lot of these even just mid-tier Big Ten teams like a Minnesota, like a Northwestern, like if we're getting crushed by those teams again, I'm going to start to be on the maybe we need something different. Maybe we peaked with Mike Locksley, but I still think that he can take this program to another level. I really do believe. I think this year it was a really weird transition year, and I don't want to give him a bunch of excuses, but I do think it was a weird transition year where you lose your starting quarterback, Talia Tagovailoa. That's clearly been the best player Maryland football has had over the last 5 years and the most important player Maryland football has had that really changed the trajectory of the program. And you brought him over with you from Alabama when you were OC at Alabama, and he really changed the program, and he's a really high-level quarterback. And you made this weird transition to Billy Edwards this year, and it just hasn't worked out as good as a lot of people thought. And I think there's a lot more clarity in the team last year. I thought we had just a better team overall. When you go position group by position group, I think most people would say our team was better last year. And so everybody has a bad year. Like the best coaches have bad years. Some of the top end coaches in the Big Ten, in the SEC, in the NFL, in the NBA, whatever the case is, have a bad year. And usually it's because your team's just not as talented. Some coaches can still figure out a way to bring out the most in their talent and figure it out. But some coaches just it's like they have to have a certain level of roster. And look, compare this year's team to last year's team. Quarterback, we're worse. Running back, I would say we're probably about the same. Receiver, I would say Tai Felton's taken a step up, but we had Tai Felton last year. We had Caden Prather last year. We also had Jay Jones. Tight end, I think we took a step back. Corey Dyches was a really good player. Offensive line, we definitely took a step back. Look at the defense. Defensive line, I'd say, is about the same. The linebacker room took a step back without Barham for sure. Corner room absolutely took a humongous step back. Safety room, about the same. And so when you really look at it, can you blame Coach Locksley for a lot of this? Yes. But do I think the Terps should fire him? No. I still think that he's the best guy to do this for Maryland football. Just look at the records. In 2019, Maryland went 3-9. In 2020, Maryland went 2-3. I guess that was the COVID year. In 2021, Maryland football jumped to 7-6 after being 3-9 and 2-3 at the previous year. In 2022, 8-5. In 2023, 8-5. And you get to 3 straight bowl games: the Pinstripe, the Duke Mayos, and the Music City Bowl game. And your program looks really solid, a middle pack Big Ten program, which I think for Maryland is a pretty good spot to be. And then this year we take this weird jump back where we're 4-6, struggling to get to 500. Almost certainly won't get to 500. Struggled to get a chance to get a bowl game, but that's pretty much out the window unless miracles happen against Iowa and Penn State, which is probably very, very unlikely. But I think when you look at Mike Locksley, I think there's still a lot of momentum surrounding this program, specifically in recruiting. I thought he brought in his best recruiting class yet with this Maryland 2025 class. And I think he also has a quarterback in that class that he really likes. And I think that everybody in the country really likes in Malik Washington. But he brings in this top 2025 class that's ranked as a top 25 class. And the fact he's bringing in a top 25 class is a big deal. I think that we just got to pray and hope none of these guys flip. But I do really like the 2025 class, and I think that he has a chance to make this class his best class. And I think one of the main reasons why is he brings in Malik Washington, 4-star quarterback. And if you start messing around with things, if you fire Mike Locksley, I'm telling you, guys will decommit. A guy like Malik Washington, Michigan has been all over him, I heard, and Michigan's really been trying to get him to flip. A guy like that might flip to somewhere like Michigan if you fire Mike Locksley. And I think when you bring in a top 25 recruiting class, and this is his best recruiting class, I think, under Coach Locksley, I think certainly under Coach Locksley, and bringing in some really top-end players at some positions you need, like Jalen Gilchrist, a top player at a key position on the offensive line that you absolutely need. And when you're bringing in some of these high-level guys, when you get a new coach, it sets you back in recruiting because all the guys that you've been going after, all the guys that you wanted could leave the program and decommit. And you also could have a lot of transfers leave out as well when you get a new coach. So I think there's no reason to fire him. I think it could set you back a lot instead of moving you forward. Sometimes they do say you have to take a couple steps back to move a couple steps forward, but or what is it? A couple steps back to make a big step forward. The quote something like that. But I don't think this is the situation. I think he's put together 3 straight really solid years for a Maryland program that we don't have a ton of NIL funds. We don't have a ton of other things going on for us. We're not a Bama or Georgia. Like, we can't recruit at that high of a level. And he's brought a top 25 class, and I think he's still working on making this thing what he wants it to be. And I think firing him would just not be right. Now, I will say, like I said before, if next year looks bad, that's when I start saying put him on the hot seat. If next year looks as bad as this year, if Malik Washington looks out of sorts, and all that stuff doesn't look good, then that's when I start saying we might have to put him on the hot seat. But for now, for this year, I say we got to let him ride. We got to let him keep going or for the next couple of years, I say you don't fire him because I think he's done a really good job with this program. I just think he has a down year. And I think everybody has down moments in their life. Everyone has a down year. I think it was a weird transition year. And I think we're realizing that you can't just have I don't want to say a mediocre quarterback, but you can't have mediocre quarterback and along with a horrible offensive line doesn't make for a good football team. You better have, if you have a mediocre, maybe not as high level as Talia Tagovailoa, you better have a quarterback that, or you better have an offensive line that's pretty good. And I think Mike Locksley is learning that the hard way, that if you're not going to have a really talented kid at quarterback, you'll probably need to have an offensive line, a really high-level offensive line. Obviously, you would love both, but I think that's something to think about in the future for Maryland football. Something that we didn't do well this year is preparing this team and getting it ready to go. I think it wasn't built right. I think we just been going into the portal too much for our offensive linemen, but I think we've recruited really well in the 2024 class with offensive linemen. I think some of those guys are going to be really good players in the next couple of years. Whether they take the step up, it's up to them. But I think a lot of them are playing this year. And I think like Terez Davis, Ryan Howerton, a lot of them are playing this year. Even more of them are getting more time than they probably should, which should get them ready. Jalen Gilchrist, who's going to be coming in as 2025, he's a top 100 talent. So I do think that they have a chance to build this offensive line without just going into the portal and getting a bunch of guys in the portal, which I do want to see from the Terps. Maryland plays Iowa this weekend. Do the Terps actually have a chance at winning this game? I'll talk about that after this ad from Skylight Frames and FanDuel. Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be part of your festivities from afar? Do your loved ones live far away but wish they could be close to you? If you come from a big family, it can be hard and expensive to buy each one of the personal gifts for the holidays. Planning to celebrate the holidays with your friend group and want to surprise them all with something a bit more special and meaningful than booze this year? It's so easy to use. We've got the perfect gift for you, Skylight Frame, and it's easy to use. Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds. Seamless sharing. Invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. Add new photos straight from the phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easy way to keep the loved ones in the loop. They'll find so much more connected to you. It's better than social media. It's a great private way to share photos without posting it to the world or having to print and store hard copies. And now is a special limited time offer for our listeners. Get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight Frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your first purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports app gives everything you need to place your live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get the hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-plays, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Can the Terps stay in the game against Iowa this weekend? So an interesting matchup against Iowa in a game where it's a weird type of game for Maryland football, because you look at the game against Iowa and you say this: how much is Iowa, or how much does Maryland put into this game? How did they kind of approach this game? Because you can approach this a couple different ways. Maryland can approach this as a game where they try different things, they play different players, they play some of their younger guys, and they do some more interesting things. Or they can approach it as a game where they really try and win the game. Because if we're being for real, Mike Locksley knows this, the whole Maryland football program knows this. We're like very, very unlikely to get to a bowl game unless we win the next two games. And that's, to me, that's really not going to happen. Like, I just don't see it. So how does Maryland approach this game? How do we keep this game close against Iowa? Iowa wants, and it's running the football. That's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to want to be successful. For them, it's all about running the football. And they have one of the more talented running backs, not only just in the Big Ten, but in the entire country, you could argue is the best running back, maybe outside of that kid at Boise State, Ashton Genty. The Iowa running back is a close second. He's put up a heck of a year for Iowa football, and he's going to be an all Big Ten, first team all Big Ten type of guy. He's the best running back in the Big Ten. And this is how they win football games. So if Maryland wants a chance to beat Iowa, where I don't think Iowa's super dynamic anywhere else besides running the football. They play solid defense and they're going to run the football. It's traditional Big Ten Iowa type of football. And I think Maryland can stick with them if they just can find a way to stop Caleb Johnson, the talented runner. Now, that's a lot easier said than done. He's putting up some crazy stats this year. I'm looking at him and I'm like, if only Maryland could put up some run stats like this, Billy Edwards' life would be so much easier. But this kid, Caleb Johnson, when you look at his stats, he has 1,328 yards with only 188 carries. And you guys might say 188 carries, that's a lot of carries. But as soon as I saw his average, I knew that 188 carries was not that much for how many yards he has. He averaged 7.1 yards per carry while having a lot of carries. That is not easy to do. If you get 10 carries in a season and you average 7 because you had one big run, that's one thing. But when you have 188 carries and you average 7.1 yards per carry, that is scary for fans to think about. That's more than their quarterback, Cade McNamara, averages per pass. So they're more efficient and they get bigger gains running the football than they do passing the football, which is you don't really see very much. You rarely see in football in general. And when I say I think for Maryland to keep it close, they got to stop this guy, I think it's all about it. When you look at the receivers, they don't have a ton of guys running around with a ton of yards. Jacob Gill, their leading receiver, only has 336 yards. Like, that's not that much. Luke Leachy, their tight end, next in line for receiver, has 209 yards. Keep in mind, Tai Felton has about 1,000 yards. So I'm not worried about Cade McNamara and their passing game. I'm worried about Caleb Johnson in their running game. I think it's all about that. Their defense is also really solid. But Maryland, you can muck this game up. If you find a way to put all your chips in the basket and stop Caleb Johnson, like, they're going to run it no matter what. And their offensive line can run block. If you can just find a way, you're not going to stop a guy like this. Can you slow Caleb Johnson down? You can win the football game. And I think getting out early, starting early is a big deal. A team like this is really hard to beat when they're up in the game because that's when they can just run the ball, eat the clock. But when they're down in the game and they have to start throwing it, that's when you get Iowa in a really good spot. So I think they're a good football team. I don't want to say they're one-dimensional, but they're really good at what they do. Like, I wouldn't say Maryland is great at anything. Iowa is great at something. And not a lot of football teams that you're going to play are really like top 5 in the country, great at something. And Iowa is. Like, maybe when you play Penn State, they'll have like maybe a top 5-ish defense in the country. Or when we played Oregon, they have a unit or two that is legitimately great, like their quarterback and their receivers and some things. But Iowa, their run game is great. And so I think you have to be able to stop that if you want any chance to not just keep it close, not just win the game, but to just keep it close. Let's talk about Tai Felton and his chance to win the Biletnikoff Award. Can he win it? Should he win it? Talk about that after this ad from Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has a daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less than at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you place $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $500 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday each Tuesday. Prize Picks discounts select players' projections up to 25% to provide even more value to your lineup. I think Justin Jefferson will get over 83.5 yards next week, or Lamar Jackson pass more than 1.5 touchdowns. Cook up hot takes with your friends, and with real money this football season with you and your crew, you can run the game on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is great to use, guys. I would definitely get on Prize Picks. So, guys, download the Prize Picks apps. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. So Tai Felton is in the running to get the Biletnikoff Award, which is the best receiver in college football, which is a pretty big deal when you look at some of the past winners that have won it. And I want to talk about, can he realistically win it? What's the kind of deal with the Biletnikoff? I think there's a lot of good players on the award list, but I do think that Tai Felton deserves to be there. He's a semifinalist for a reason, but there are some top guys that are definitely up there for the Biletnikoff Award right now. But it is really cool to see that Tai Felton is in one of the 11 semifinalists, along with Ohio State's Jeremiah Smith as the only receivers in the Big Ten. Felton ranks first in receptions and second in receiving yards among all power conferences. He also leads the Big Ten in both categories. To me, he's second in receiving yards, first in receptions among all. I think he should have a chance to win this award. I think he should be right there in the running. Now, there's a lot of high-level players, so it's not going to be easy to win that award, but I do think he deserves to be right in it with all those other guys that are really high-end players. Now, when you look at it, some of the other guys that are on the list include some really high-level guys like the Tre Harris kid from Ole Miss, who's been having a big season, Travis Hunter, who might win the actual Heisman. If you take the Biletnikoff and the Heisman, that's a pretty big deal. And then you look at McMillan at Arizona, Xavier Restrepo at Miami, of course, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, those two freshmen being up for the Biletnikoff Award is pretty amazing. But when you look at the country receiving stats, Tai Felton is top in the two most important stats, in my opinion. And I think I'm not going to say he deserves to win, but the fact that he's in the conversation with how Maryland has played this year is a pretty big deal. A lot of people say it's a team type of award. That's what Locksley said. The better you play as a team, the better chance you have at winning it. Like right now, he's first in reception among power conferences in receptions, and then in yards, he's second in the power conferences, just behind McMillan. Like, he has the stats to do it. It's just like, has Maryland won enough as a program this year to give him something like that? I think it's tough to win it when you're not like an elite type of player, or elite type of program. But I do think if you put up a good enough year, you can do it. Now, do I think he's going to win it? No, I don't. I just honestly don't. I think the McMillan kid has a really good chance. I think the Tre Harris kid as well. But I do think he should be in it. And when you look at some of the past winners, like, they're pretty much all dudes in the NFL. Marvin Harrison, of course, Jalen Hyatt, Jordan Addison, Jamar Chase, Amari Cooper, just a bunch of guys that are really good football players. And so it's a big time award to win the best receiver in the Biletnikoff. Like, that's an honor for Tai Felton. The fact he's a semifinalist shows that despite Maryland's horrible season, he had a highlight season where he's put himself in position now where he's going to be able to go to the NFL and make a whole lot of money and have a long career there. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you for listening to Locked on Terps.